They make it better. I kind of kicked his butt into gear to build it. They probably eat better than I do.
This is Toby and Tink, adorable rabbits. And this is their mom, independent music recording artist Priscilla Cruz, aka Shortcake. We get to meet them all today on a hoppin' episode of Industry Pets. All right, welcome to Industry Pets, Priscilla Cruz, aka Shortcake. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. How about yourself?
Very well, and we are excited to learn about your pets. You have two amazing rabbits named Toby and Tink, correct?
Yes, I do.
Tell me about pets. Did you grow up with pets?
Yeah, actually, I've always had pets from a young kid. We had a lot of cats, but I had one cat, and she ended up having many litters, and we had kittens, and that's a whole nother story. But I had cats, I had dogs, I had a fish that died. I've had quite a few animals.
Awesome. So now you have rabbits. What makes rabbits awesome pets?
I think rabbits kind of fall into, I always say that they're kind of a cat and a dog mixed together, because they can be on their own. Like, cats are very independent. But they also, depending on their personality, like affection, but they're very wishy-washy, so it's all on their time. So they're kind of low maintenance, but at times high maintenance, I suppose. They fall somewhere in between. I just thought it would be kind of easy to have them.
So how did you come up with the names, Toby and Tink?
That's actually both their adopted names. So that was on the paper when we adopted them.
Awesome.
So we just kept it.
And where did you adopt them from?
From a place called East Bay Rabbit Rescue. So it's local to where I'm from in Livermore, California.
Tell us about East Bay Animal Rescue. That's actually our charity shout out for this episode.
They foster and care for all the rabbits that they get that come in, and they're chipped and neutered, and they take care of them really well before they adopt them out. And they actually have a really thorough process before adopting to somebody, which I like, because they want to make sure that the rabbits are going to a place that they'll be cared for. So I think they do a great job in what they're doing.
Rabbits aren't the most common pets around. So do rabbits have personalities that differ from each other?
I think so. My two definitely have different personalities. They're really loving to each other, which they weren't at first when we bonded them. But the girl, who is Tink, she's very, very sassy, and she doesn't like to be touched all the time. So I'm not sure if that has to do with the previous owners or if that's just how she is. I know some rabbits don't like to be held. But Toby, he is the white rabbit. He likes to be petted and loved. Not very much held, but he just likes to be paid attention to. So they're very opposite when it comes to that, which is, cute in a way.
So what kind of vet maintenance do rabbits require?
I honestly just take them in for a checkup once a year. And then I do sometimes take them in to get their nails trimmed if I can't do it myself. But that's as far as like the vet visits that I've done. But I know there are certain things to look out for in case they do need to visit, like if they're not eating, if they're not pooping or peeing. Sometimes they get sick if they're fed too many treats, which would be like too many fruits, the sugar. So there's just like certain things to watch out for in case you do need to take them to the vet.
So what do you feed rabbits?
They have a morning and a nighttime routine. So I usually give them like a little handful of pellets, and then they have leafy greens, and then like a little tiny bit of cut up strawberries or blueberries, sometimes carrots, celery, and they probably eat better than I do. But that's pretty much it. But most of their feed is like the hay. They usually say to do 80% hay and then like 20% of like the leafy greens and the fruits and veggies. So they eat a lot of hay.
Toby and Tink have a really cool house. So you got to tell us, you got to give us the MTV Cribs about how your house is so cool.
So when we moved into our house, which was last year, we moved from an apartment, and in the apartment, they had like a little section. They pretty much took up the whole space of our kitchen. And they had their little house in there, which my fiance had built probably about maybe 6 months to a year prior. So when we moved here to this house, I had been talking about how I wanted to build them like a little shed. So as soon as we moved in, I kind of kicked his butt into gear to build it. So he actually built it. And probably took him like maybe 3 weeks to a month or so. So it was pretty fast, but it's more than I expected, which is nice, because it's a nice big area, but it's evolved over time because at first it started out and it was just like the bare outside and the colors were like just what it was. But at the end of this past summer, I decided to go out and repaint it and spruce it up a bit, and because I kind of want it to have its own feel, and I did that within probably like 3 weeks. I think I got it all painted. But I also put carpet in it this winter so they could have more warmth. So they're very spoiled.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you're in California too, so I mean,
Yeah.
that's like $4,000 rent right there that the rabbits just have for free.
Right. Yeah, they're so spoiled. It's kind of when I think about it, I'm like, wow.
If Toby and Tink could turn human for a day, what would they do?
I feel like Tink would probably cause havoc. She's just so sassy, and she just has a lot of energy. And I built them a sandbox in the summertime, and that's like her favorite thing to do is just dig in the sandbox. So I feel like maybe she would work out a lot or something to release the energy, I think. And then Toby, I feel like Toby would just chill. Like, he's super chill. He'd probably just chill and eat snacks all day, honestly.
You got them together at the same time or no?
So we had Toby for like 2 years before Tink came along. And for some reason, I thought maybe he would want a friend. And I think at first he was like, what are you doing? Because when we went to go to the adoption, you have to kind of introduce them and they have to be bonded. So the introduction didn't go so well. And then when we brought her home, that kind of even got worse. So for a good probably 3 months, we had to keep them in separate cages and then introduce them into one cage. And he would just chase her around and nip at her. So I didn't think it was actually going to work out. But they ended up bonding, thank God. And they really are very close now. So it was a long process and stressful. So it was a lot of work, like more than somebody probably, would think it is. But yeah, so now they're like, I don't know if they're like brother and sister or like girlfriend and boyfriend, but I know they love each other.
Have your pets inspired you musically at all, or do you get inspiration from them?
I don't think I've ever drawn like lyrically from them, but I think when it comes to like making music, I think having pets and having them like teaches me and keeps me patient, in a sense. So it kind of gives me the discipline to do what I need to do, and also find patience within what I'm doing, whether it's I can't finish something or maybe I have, a creative block. Like I return back to the patience point of it. You know what I mean?
How do Toby and Tink affect your mental health?
Oh, they make it better. Like when I'm having a bad day, they're just so pure and innocent and very authentic in who they are as animals that it just kind of like makes you forget about all the nonsense we tend to think about as humans,
If you could become a rabbit, what would you do?
If I was a rabbit, what would I do? I'd probably dig a hole. Dig a hole. Like, they dig these crazy holes and they can burrow in like underground and stuff. And I think that's pretty cool. So I think that's what I do. I can't really think of anything else. Besides hopping, but that's like the obvious.
Priscilla, tell everybody what you got going on and where they can find you at.
Right now, I'm just making music and I'm hoping to keep releasing songs next year, even more songs next year. You can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Spotify, and those are the main two. Just under Priscilla Cruz, aka Shortcake.
Awesome. Check out Shortcake's latest music and keep in touch with her on social media so that way you can find out more about her journey in music and Toby and Tink's journey as well. Priscilla, thank you so much for getting on the show today. We appreciate having you on Industry Pets.
Yeah, thank you so much.